Now I'm going to run you through the emotional intelligence model in a moment. But I want to let you know that whenever we're dealing with emotional intelligence, it is absolutely, completely necessary for us to always start with us. You want to have an emotionally intelligent organization. You want to have a successful and emotionally intelligent team. You want productivity. You want improved profits. You want more successful sales. You want better connections and relationships. All of those things will start with emotional intelligence, and they all start with you as the leader developing your emotional intelligence, because as we know, the fish rots from the head down. Look, there's a whole bunch of emotional intelligence models getting about, but I want to share the one with you that I feel really gets to all the basics, and it incorporates everything that's necessary in a way that people understand it. If you search online or read some of the books about emotional intelligence, there's lots of different types of charts, and some of them will have lots of indicators and so on, but that all boils down to these main 4 things that we've got in this slide here. And of course, because we're starting with ourselves, we're going to start with self-awareness and self-management. But if you notice in the model, self-awareness, self-management on one side, and then on the other side is social awareness and relationship management. And that's about other people. So we'll be dealing with that later. But starting with self-awareness and starting with self-management. Self-awareness can sound like a bit of a fluffy term. I spoke at a conference recently, and somebody asked me when I was speaking on a panel what was sort of the number one thing that I believe helps people move forward in the workplace. And I talked about self-awareness and then linked it to a lot of the strategies and so on. And one of the other women on the panel said, well, while you're sitting there with your self-awareness, sitting around the campfire singing Kumbaya, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to get some results. And it was really, I thought it was quite funny the way she said it. But in saying that, it's sometimes we can think that self-awareness is a little bit fluffy. And depending on the way that we're able to communicate that with others will depend if that message is communicated with intelligence, but also with credibility or not. So I always link self-awareness to strategic thinking, because it leads to more credibility within the workplace. But if you think about self-awareness, well, what is it? Is it just, fluff? Oh, I'm just sitting there and I'm going to be really aware of myself, and that's fantastic. Well, it can be, I guess. But when I think about self-awareness and I share about self-awareness in the workplace, like self-awareness is having an understanding, like an innate understanding of the way that I work, the way that I am, the way that I be within the workplace. So that means like the way that I'm going to turn up. It means that I'm going to have an awareness of the way that I'm feeling in the workplace, and possibly what that could lead to later on in the day. Is it going to lead to better performance or not? If not, I can create a change. Self-awareness can allow you to have an understanding of the relationships that you have with others as well, like how you're feeling, if you're able to communicate that to other people effectively. All of that starts with self-awareness. So self-awareness has an impact on, obviously, your performance and your motivation. If you're aware of the things that motivate you or don't, you can then make choices around outsourcing. You can make choices around delegating. You can, make choices around reducing those things that are done in your role, so that somebody else needs to do it, or it's moved over to somebody else. So having that awareness is part of it, but it's not all of it, of course, because as I always say, it's one thing to have the awareness, but it's another to do something about it. So self-awareness is the first part, and deepening your level of self-awareness around how you're feeling and what that could possibly lead to. How you're feeling and what tools you have in your tool belt to create change around that to get a better result. Like starting with areas like that. But all of that, the awareness is important. But when we pair that with the second part of the emotional intelligence model, which is self-management, then it moves more into action, and it gets away from sitting around the campfire singing Kumbaya, and actually into the action where it allows you to do something about it. because the awareness itself is not enough. Starts with self-awareness, but then self-management in this model allows you to actually do something with it. Now, so if you think about having an awareness around, I'm feeling pretty crappy today and I'm coming to work and I've got to speak at a meeting, for example, then if you go in like that, in that headspace, and don't change it, you just walk in and go, well, this is, authentically who I am. I'm just going to turn up and I'm going to be the crabby version of me like I'm feeling right now, then it's not necessarily going to allow you to communicate really effectively. It's not necessarily going to allow you to negotiate or to be able to influence in the way that you want. It's not necessarily going to give you the energy that you need to get the results that you want. So self-awareness is the first part of the pie. The second part is self-management, allowing you to do something about the awareness. I have awareness that I'm going to work today, I have important stuff to do, and I'm not feeling great because my kids woke up through the night, or I've been super busy, or I haven't been eating well, or haven't been exercising, or whatever it is has led you to be feeling the particular way. The self-management part of it allows you to start to make different choices around what to do next. One, okay, I can actually go for a walk before I go into the meeting. I can make sure that I'm preparing more than I normally would going into that meeting, because that will allow me to set up and be more, to deliver my message even more. I might go into the bathroom and do the power pose for a few minutes to really move my energy, or to do some 10-star jumps, or walk around the block, or call a friend, or listen to a song, a favorite song. All of those things are allowing us to have awareness of what's going on in here, so our mind and our body, and then to take steps to do something about it, to change a result, or to improve a result, or to get a better result. In the area of motivation, if you think about it, you've got to do an activity that day that isn't something that you really love to do. For example, when early in my business, I used to do my own bookkeeping and accounting. And whenever I had to do my bookkeeping and accounting, which was by far the least favorite thing I ever got to do in my business, I would put it off, for one, because I'd be like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. So being unresourceful, I would put it off. And then it would get to the crutch where I'd need to sit down and, rectify the numbers. I know that's not the right term, but whatever you need to do. Clearly, I never really learned how to do it that well. But I would put it off for one, and then when I got to crunch time and I'd sit down and have to do it, I would be like, such a heavy energy to do it. It would take me 10 times as long to do. And then one day I started to think about it and thought, oh gee, I'm a coach, I have all of these great tools, why don't I do something about this? I started to think about, what is it about this that I don't like? I got clear on the fact that it was because I felt that it was a really repetitive activity, and I'm kind of a bit of a junkie for variety, so that bores me a lot. I've never really been interested or really that great at numbers, so it sort of fed into all of the stuff that was a bit unresourceful for me. What I decided to do then was to go, okay, well, at the moment, I wasn't making enough money in my business to get a bookkeeper and an accountant back then. So what I did was decided I was going to do a couple of different things, like to hit it from a bunch of different angles, which was one, okay, I have the awareness that I don't like doing my bookkeeping and my accounting, and I kind of have to do it anyway. So I started to reframe it and go, okay, well, Friday is my favorite day of the week because it was always a lighter duties day for me. And I would do it in Friday morning, always had plenty of energy. It had that Friday feel. I'd drop my son off for school. I'd go back to my office, and that'd be the first thing I'd do before I got a coffee was to do 1 hour of accounting. That gave me enough time to make sure I had it done, and also needed to move quite quickly to get it done. So I would go in, I decided that it was really cool that I had to do my accounting. I was able to reframe it and go, isn't it cool that I've got to do my accounting? Because this means that I'm earning money in my business to have to sort of like reconcile is the word, reconcile, all of these accounting things. If I wasn't making any money, I wouldn't have to do this, and I also wouldn't have a business. So, okay, so that's a good thing. The other thing was, isn't it great that I've got to write invoices for people, because then I've got money coming in my business and my business is being more successful. Isn't it amazing that I get to pay taxes and GST, because that means that this money that I'm paying, well, for one, I brought money into my business, so of course I have to pay taxes. and I would create a bit of a competition for myself of always wanting to pay more GST because that meant that I had more money coming into my business. But also, isn't it great that I get to run my own business and to pay my own GST, and that money goes towards fixing the roads and, you know, school and education and hospitals and all of that stuff. Now, you might be sitting here going, yeah, rah, rah, rah. But for me at the time, that was the way that I was able to reframe in a whole bunch of different ways, that activity. So I had the awareness that I didn't like to do that duty, that activity. So then I went and created a heap of self-management tools around it to create a change in how I felt doing it. So I created that emotional shift in doing it. I was approaching the activity in a completely different way. And then once it was done, once I got it done within that hour of time, then I would go and celebrate by taking myself down to the local cafe, speaking to the barista, getting the connection and the conversation and the interaction like I really, really liked throughout my day. And that allowed me to bring my energy back up to get back into my Friday feel day. So this is a really simple example of self-awareness and then self-management, actually having the awareness about it and then making the choice, choosing to manage it and do something about it to create a better result. What actually obviously has happened since then is my business has grown and grown and grown, and it was also the first thing that I outsourced. So as soon as I started making enough money, I outsourced my bookkeeping. I probably have had a bookkeeper now for, I don't know, 6-7 years. And then I got an accountant to do that stuff as well. So that's been going on for years. So at the beginning, it was a laborious thing to do. Then I was able to reframe it until I got myself into a financial position to be able to outsource it. So that's a great example of self-awareness and then self-management. Self-awareness is one thing, but actually choosing to do something about it is another. So enabling yourself to use your emotions in the right way to motivate yourself, but also to put yourself in a position where you can do something about it. Okay, so self-awareness, the main areas of self-awareness is around I have an awareness of how I can motivate myself more, how I can choose to respond and react to situations, how I can choose to have, you know, deeper relationships with others by having an awareness of my emotions and the way that I respond to things. And obviously performance and productivity in the workplace. When you have an awareness of the things you do well, have an awareness of your strengths, have an awareness of what you need in your day to allow you to perform. So for me, that is I need connection throughout the day. I work from home a lot, so I make sure that I have my coaching calls. You know, I do coaching calls with my clients on a number of days a week. I go to a local cafe, contact with people there. You know, I'll call people if I need. So be aware of what you need in your day, and then once you've got that awareness, then choose to take steps to enable those things to fall into place. Now, I sort of banged on here about this a little bit, but I want you to really understand that, you know, self-awareness and then self-management, yeah. But actually drill down on what that means for you. Drill down on what self-awareness can do for you. And I'll tell you why, for you particularly, in this training that I'm kind of banging on about this a bit, is because as coaches, we generally have a fair bit of awareness because we've done the courses. We've learned about above the line and below the line. You know, we know what you focus on is what you get. We've done the courses, we've read the books, we've done the online trainings. Awareness is one thing, but then choosing to implement what you know to create a better result is something else altogether. And having read the books is great, tick. Having done the courses is great, tick. But your job now, as a trainer, as a coach, as somebody that, you know, focuses on growth and contribution, you actually need to do something about it, that awareness, to implement this stuff, to make it happen. Because otherwise, it's awareness for awareness' sake, and that doesn't serve anybody. Put this into the workplace when you're out there training other people. Same thing, you know, a lot of leaders will have read all the leadership books. They will have had the conversations. They will have done the mentoring, yeah? They know what they need to do. But if they know what they need to do and they're not doing anything about it, they might have the self-awareness step down, but the self-management, that's where they need a bit more of the work. Okay, so that sort of explains the first part of the model, and we're going to go into more detail about social awareness and relationship management later on, because that's the way our training unfolds.